everybody. Those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Bale. I am the creator behind Just One More Project and the Laser Craft Fest. Can you hear me? This is good. Okay. How many of you guys here have a sublimation setup at home? Yes. Okay. How many of you are thinking about it? Maybe. Okay. Maybe. Put your hand up. Yes. Okay. So today I'm going to walk you guys through different ways that you can incorporate color into your business. We're going to talk about what exactly sublimation is, the tools that you need to get started with sublimation, and the entire process. It's not as scary as it sounds. And then we're going to be talking about blanks. We're going to be talking about laser-made blanks and how to incorporate them both. And then I'm really going to tell you the differences between sublimation and UV printing, because UV printing is very cool. And I really want you guys to know the differences between both of those ways to add color. So that's what we're going to talk about. And because there's just a few of us, feel free to ask me questions. I don't have like a full agenda here. So can I just, yeah, okay. So you guys know me. I already told you I am from Texas. A little bit about my journey. I got a laser, I don't know, 5 years ago. And I had started creating SVG files for t-shirts and slowly figured out that I could do the same thing with lasers. And I bought a laser and I never turned back, and I have never used a vinyl cutter since then. So that was where I was back 5 years ago. Okay, so I didn't know we had slides. All right, so let me talk to you about some ways that you can add color to your business. Obviously, option one, we all know, is UV printing. This is where you can print on any material. You can actually print the color white with UV printing, and you can print texture. So you can actually have your surface be raised. And we all know that UV printing has a super high upfront cost, because you have to purchase a UV printer, which is kind of like buying a car. So we're not sure about that, but it is a really, really good way for you to add color to laser cut projects using UV printing. Then you have sublimation. Sublimation is a different way to add color. It is ink that is bonded to a material, so it basically becomes part of that material, and it requires heat to bond to that material. You can get super vibrant colors. It is a relatively low startup cost. There's not very much that you need to get started, but it can be a really good segue to UV printing. So if you are thinking about adding color and you're thinking, okay, I think I might be interested in adding things with color, but you don't really want to go down that investment of UV printing, sublimation might be a good way for you to test your products. So with that said, let's talk about what sublimation is. Okay, so I'm gonna go a little sciencey here, and this is the best I can do. Sublimation is really the process when super special ink gets heated up. Once it gets heated up, it turns into a gas, and then that gas somehow just like bonds to that material. There's some science there, I don't know what it is, but it is part of that material. Now, when you're looking at something that's sublimated, it doesn't just sit on the surface. It is now a part of that surface. So you can scrub it, you can wipe it, it is not gonna come off. It's part of that material. The entire chemical process only occurs when heat is applied to that special ink. And then that leaves you with gorgeous, full color, permanent results. So if you're thinking about adding sublimation to your world, there's a couple of things that you need to make sure that you add to make sure that you can actually do this. So I'm gonna start off by telling you the things that you need to have, and then telling you the things that you may not need to have. How many of you guys here have kids? Yes, okay. So I'm gonna tell you a story, and this will help you understand what I'm talking about. So I have two girls, and how many of you have taken your kids to like buy school supplies? Yes, there's always that like list that the teacher gives you, like this is what you need. And then there's like the list that your children have that's like, I want the sparkly pencils, I want the sparkly erasers. And you're like, no, you need the lunchbox, you need the binder, and like that's it, right? So those I see as the necessary things to have. Like those are your need to have. And then there's the nice to have, which is the sparkly pencils and stuff. So we're okay with that stuff too, but I will tell you both because we all know that once we buy something, we may end up buying some of the cool sparkly stuff. So that is what we're gonna talk about. So let's talk about those need to haves. And this is essential to get started with sublimation. So definitely you need a sublimation printer. A sublimation printer is very different from a regular inkjet printer. Though they look the same, they are not the same. They are going to be using a special kind of ink that is specific to sublimation. Now here's that science part of it where that ink is the kind of ink that is meant to be vaporized and bonded to that fabric. It is not inkjet printer ink. It is different. Obviously, you are going to need to have sublimation paper. Now, you're going to need a place for that ink to transfer onto so that you can ultimately apply it to the surface that you want. So, printer, ink, and paper, right? All specific to sublimation. And then you are going to need some kind of heat form. Now, if you're going to do laser cutting, this is really, really fun. I don't want to do this one again. Okay. If you're gonna do laser cutting, you're probably gonna want a flat heat press. If you're gonna be doing it on like tumblers and things, you might wanna get the heat source that is specific to the material that you're using. So I would recommend a heat press because you can get generic there. And then one of the things that you are gonna need is some kind of blowout paper to protect your surface. So I'll talk to you guys about that process in a few here. Okay, here's the nice to haves. I actually might think this one's a need to have. I don't know, maybe. You are going to need to have heat resistant tape. If you get really good at stuff, you might not want to tape it down. If you're not very good at it, you might want to tape it down because when you press it, you have the risk of moving it around. And so that is a nice to have. You're also going to want a lint roller. The problem with sublimation is when you apply something and you press it and there's a tiny little lint fabric in there, you'll see it, and it's not going to be great. So if you have pets or animal hair, it's going to be in there, and it's going to be part of that or that whatever you've sublimated, and it is not great. So a lint roller is really important. And then one of the ones that I learned very quickly was heat gloves. It is very hot, and you will be likely to touch it because it's really cool and pretty, and you're going to want to see it, but you may want to get some heat gloves. So. Does anyone have any questions before I jump in to the whole process? Does this kind of make a little bit of sense here? So with the entire printing process, you're obviously going to need to have a color image that you can print. You're going to want to print it on your sublimation printer, and you're going to want to print it on with the sublimation paper that is specific to that process. You're going to want to print your PNG, JPG files, and sublimation printers, true sublimation printers have really good settings on there where you can, it'll automatically be set up in that driver, but you typically want to print it out at a presentation matte and the highest quality color you can because you want a lot of that ink to absorb onto that paper so that it can transfer. So that is what you need there. Okay, this is what I call the sublimation stack. And sometimes I often forget about like how many layers you have to do, but let's say you are wanting to sublimate on something that is laser cut. Okay, so that is your substrate, okay? You're gonna wanna start with butcher paper below it, and this is to protect your heat press, okay? So typically whenever you're applying that heat, the ink is gonna come out and you're gonna spill it all over your heat press. So you're gonna want something to protect your press. You're gonna wanna have your substrate facing up the way that you want, facing the way that you want your surface to be applied on, if that makes sense. And then your transfer needs to be facing down. So transfer, application, this way. And then you're gonna want butcher paper on top. So I call this the sublimation stack, kind of like a sandwich, and you wanna make sure that that's all stacked together so that you can get the best press. And now I kind of follow the same process for every single time I do it because if you do that, you are going to get the same results each time. And so we'll talk about what that actually looks like. Okay. All right. So what exactly can you sublimate? Now, how many of you guys have laser cutters here? Yay. Okay. So There's a lot of cool things that you can do if you don't have a laser cutter and you just want to sublimate. So first of all, you can sublimate on anything that has a high polyester count, okay? Anything that also has a polyester coating on it. So you can't just sublimate on anything because it's not going to bond to it. Sublimation ink is meant to bond to polyester, okay? Now, it will likely, if you sublimate on wood, for example, that is not coated, your ink will transfer, but it will likely fade away, it'll likely wipe away. It will not be part of that material because it's just kind of melted onto the material, and if you wash it, wipe it, scrub it, it'll probably come off. So if that's something you're thinking about offering as products, it's probably not gonna last very long. So I would highly not do that. Okay, so sublimation blanks, you see these all over Amazon, I'm sure. You see these at lots of folks here have them too. They typically come in two kinds of options. You can get blanks that are textiles and blanks that are non-textiles. The textiles are typically made with high polyester counts, and so you're gonna really see super high polyester in all of those types of things. So like your mouse pads, like your keychains, those ribbons, all that stuff. And then you have your non-textiles, which are your mugs, your coasters, those types of things. Now, can you sublimate on something that you pick up from the store? Probably. If you look, I've done this a lot. I've gone to Walmart, Target, grabbed a t-shirt and looked at the polyester count on that t-shirt, and if it's like 50% polyester, yes, you can probably sublimate on it, but you're gonna get kind of like a faded like look instead of like a full vibrant look that you would get with something that's 100% polyester. So yes, you can probably sublimate on something that you pick up at the store, but just make sure you check your count of how much polyester is in there. Okay, so here's some examples of those textiles. You got your t-shirts, your hats, your pillowcases, all the stuff. And so these are high polyester count specific for sublimation. And then you have your non-textiles, so your tumblers. And you can see how vibrant this is because this has like a coating on it. You can see it's kind of shiny. That's that poly coating that is applied to that tumbler that allows it to be sublimated. MakerFlo does have some sublimation, has quite a few tumblers that are sublimation ready, so that means that they have that coating applied to it, and so they are ready to absorb that color. You can also purchase wood that has a special coating on it that will allow sublimation to work with it, so just keep that in mind. You just want to make sure that you have what you need on it so that it actually sublimates. Okay, this is so cool because when you have a laser and then you add sublimation to it, you have so much possibility because now you can actually, you're not stuck with those generic blanks. There's so much you can do. You can cut, I'll show you a picture, but you can cut so much good stuff because you have a laser. It's so customized. The possibilities are just amazing. So I'm gonna walk you through. Now you have the ability to make full color sublimated bases that are laser cut, right? You can do custom shapes. You can add frames, layers, a different kind of engravable pieces onto your sublimation. So now you can add a ton of dimension to whatever product line you're offering using your laser. So now you can just go way, way beyond the generic blanks that we saw earlier that you could buy on Amazon. You can add so much more. Like imagining a sublimation coaster that is laser cut. You can add layers to it. You can do different variations of colors. There's so much good stuff. So think about what you can do here. Like these are all sublimated on different kinds of materials, and you can see that these are all custom shapes. Like you can do photographs. There's just so many options here. Have you guys done this before? Has anyone here? Okay, what kind of things have you done? Photos, yep. Photos are a big one. I will say that anybody will buy a photo, anything sublimated with a picture of their children on it, hands down, they will purchase it. So you can't go wrong there. And then now you'll notice that a lot of these materials, these are sublimated on laser cut acrylic. So acrylic is kind of sublimation ready already because of what it's made out of. So you'll see that most acrylic can have sublimation kind of bonded to it. Now there is Sublimation Ready acrylic, which has an additional coating on there, but I would think any white acrylic would work. One of the things that you do need to know is with sublimation ink, it is transparent. So if you're printing on something that is clear and it has a lot of white on it, it's gonna show as clear. And I have a picture to show you guys what that looks like. Okay, so one of the things that you might wanna consider is if you are thinking about adding color, is the differences between the sublimation and UV printing. And now, I always say that sublimation is a really good way to get started because it's just such an easier price point to come into to see if your buyers are actually interested in those colors, the color products. It's just so much. You can test it and see, like, does my audience even care about this? Do they even want this? And so I do think that is an option. I have some pictures here that I want to show you. So feel free to, if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me, and I'm happy to answer them. But I wanted, oh, he took them off. It's okay. So I had a couple of photos of some samples that I wanted to show you. So I have tried to sublimate on several different kinds of materials. I've sublimated on wood. I've sublimated on True Flat. True Flat is down over there. I've sublimated on acrylic, white acrylic, clear acrylic, sublimatable MDF, and you can get a variety of different looks just depending on the kind of material you get. So with UV printing, when you are printing something, you kind of have to adjust your image to print it the way you want it. So if you want it to look like faded and you want it to look like it's like vintagey kind of, you're gonna have to make that in your design. If you're sublimating and you're sublimating on material that gives you a lighter transfer, then you have that vintage design. So I kind of want you to think a little bit creatively about the kinds of materials that you can use and what kind of outcome you would get with those materials. Some of my favorites, I love using True Flat on sublimation. It gives this, it's not like a true sublimation ready material, but it does bond really, really well, and it gives you a really nice vintage look. Clear acrylic is phenomenal with any kind of design that has a lot of black, a lot of white, or a lot of black in color. If you do have something that's white, I would suggest that you print it on white acrylic so that the white will show up. And with UV printing, there's definitely it prints white for you, so you really don't need to worry about that too much. Does anyone have any questions? Because I can talk all day about sublimation. Yay! Love it, love it, love it.
I said I love your content.
Thank you, thank you. She's talking about the Laser Craft Fest. We're hosting it in about a month, so look that up and you'll find it. You'll learn all the things. So, yes, it's all online.
There are a bunch of sessions that you do online. It's really cool.
Yes, look up lasercraftfest.com. Yes, go ahead.
What are the other big differences between sublimation and just the size that you use?
Oh yes, thank you.
You can't rely on this 12 by 12.
Yeah, I agree. So what she's saying is that one of the big differences is the size, and I think that it really depends on the kind of sublimation printer you have. So I have one that is that can only print legal size as the highest amount, and so that's when you got to think a little creatively. Like, I've printed larger things, but I've broken up my design in several pieces and then kind of pieced them together. Is that a great look? If you're good at it, yes, it could be, but there's definitely pros and cons. If you are not wanting to spend $30,000 to go into UV printing, this is a really good way to start that and see if it's actually useful and if your folks want to buy it. Yeah, good.
I'll just say that the best sublimation wood I use
Oh, I want to know this.
Smoky Hills marker board.
What's it called?
Smoky Hills.
Okay.
It's their marker board.
Marker board. Yes. Yes. Houston Acrylic also sells it's sublimation friendly MDF, and so it basically has that poly coating on top of it, but it's MDF core. And you'll notice, because it has that shiny kind of like dry erase board look to it, bonds so beautifully. If you guys walk over there to their booth, they have a whole bunch of sublimation samples that I've actually done, and they're like the little flower, and I've kind of done them on different materials so you can see the finishes on there, and they're like vastly different because depending on the kind of person that you're selling it to. So there's so many different options when it comes to sublimation, I think. So if after you guys are we're done, I'm happy to answer any other questions if you need. But you can always find me on Instagram, Just One More Project. LaserCraftFest.com is in a month, and love to see you guys there.